All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the House Environment and Transportation Committee for March 12th, 2025. We have a number of bills to go through, and then we're hoping subcommittees can meet and be very productive. And we will vote tomorrow at some point, and I'm sure subcommittees will be meeting tomorrow as well. So let us begin with the Carroll County delegation. I think Delegate Tomlinson here on behalf of the delegation. HB 851, Office of Permits and Inspections, denial of commercial permit or license for unpaid personal property taxes.
Thank you, Chairman Corman. Honorable members of the House Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, my name is Delegate Chris Tomlinson, and on behalf of the Carroll County House Delegation, I'm testifying on House Bill 851. House Bill 851 would prohibit Carroll County's Office of Permits and Inspections from issuing or renewing a license or permit until the applicant provides satisfactory evidence that there are no unpaid assessed personal property taxes. Carroll County currently does not have an efficient or an effective mechanism to hold businesses responsible for unpaid property taxes. Therefore, businesses can continue to operate without penalty for failure to pay this tax. Currently, the only option to enforce payment of these taxes requires the county attorney's office, to pursue a court proceeding, which is, of course, a lot of times slow, expensive, and takes a considerable amount of puts a considerable administrative expense on the county. House Bill 851 was approved unanimously by the Carroll County House delegation, and the delegation respectively requests a favorable report. Thank you, Chairman Corman and the members of this committee. Thanks.
Thank you. We also have a virtual witness, Pam Meister from the Office of the County Commissioner. Apologize if she is a county commissioner. Oh, I'm sorry. They're not here. So okay. You're on your own, Delegate Tomlinson. Any questions for?
She's the county's legislative liaison.
Next bill. Okay. Sorry. So there's no one here from Carroll County except our great delegate, Delegate Tomlinson. Any questions for Delegate Tomlinson? Okay, thank you. That concludes Bill House Bill 851. We'll turn to House Bill 1284. Delegate Davis on behalf of the Charles County delegation, governing bodies of common ownership communities member training.
Hello. Good afternoon, Chair Corman and members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. My name is Camille Dickerson. I am a graduating senior at the University of Maryland, getting my bachelor's degree in criminology. Today I'm here on behalf of the chair of the Charles County delegation, Delegate Deborah Davis, in support of House Bill 1284, governing bodies of common ownership communities member training. You may be familiar with this bill as it's been heard in committee before. This bill will require board members and officers of condominium councils and homeowners associations in Charles County to complete a mandatory training curriculum. This is a necessary step to ensure effective and responsible community management. Board members have a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of their communities, and proper training will aid in fulfilling this responsibility. With greater understanding of their roles, board members will be better equipped to make informed decisions, uphold legal and financial responsibilities, as well as actively strive to foster a sense of community within living environments. There is a similar training program in Montgomery County through its Commission on Common Ownership Communities to ensure that the board members of homeowners associations and condominium councils are well equipped to manage their communities effectively. This program provides education, key responsibilities. We have a strong unanimous support for the passage of this legislation from the Charles County Commissioners and the Charles County delegation. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the committee to issue a favorable report on House Bill 1284. Thank you for your time and consideration, and we are happy to answer any questions and are available for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Delegate Davis, you have a question? I know, I'll get some. Just want to make sure there's no questions. Okay, we have a virtual witness, Danielle Mitchell from Charles County Government. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman and members. On behalf of the Board of Commissioners, Danielle Mitchell, Assistant Deputy County Attorney. I think your prior speaker summed it up very nicely. We're really seeking this legislation in response to a request that we received from members of our local Charles County HOA and Civic Association group. They felt that there was a need for a certain level of training and competency with respect to these HOA boards. And so the commissioners have responded to that and sought this legislation. We're happy to answer any questions, but that essentially is it.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for this witness? Okay, well, thank you both. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1284. We'll turn to House Bill 1525. Delegate Harrison, Municipalities Annexation Limitations.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. Thank you for having me in here again. I am Delegate Andrea Harrison, and I am seeking your support for HB 1525, which provides limitations to the annexation of properties by municipalities. Annexation serves as a vital mechanism for municipalities to adapt to growth and enhance tax revenue. However, when these changes cross boundaries of legislative districts, they jeopardize the fundamental principles of equitable representation. These implications of municipal annexation across legislative districts also directly impact the lives of countless citizens who deserve clear and effective representation. When annexation crosses legislative districts and it is not during a decennial census, it undermines the essential relationship between constituents and their elected representatives. Further, it will lead to unequal population distribution. Such complexities can lead to conflicts and delays, ultimately stunting the growth and development of some areas and overgrowth of others, sometimes even within the same community or that immediate adjacent community. The rich tapestry of our communities is woven from shared values, history, and social connections. When annexation disrupts these established identities by linking residents to unfamiliar locales, it can foster disconnection and alienation. Preserving community identity is paramount to building strong, resilient neighborhoods. To safeguard the interests of our communities and ensure fair representation, I strongly advocate for the implementation of clear limitations on municipal annexation across legislative districts. These measures could or should include the establishment of strict criteria that requires any annexation to align with the existing legislative boundaries, protecting the cohesive representation of residents, at least until the decennial census. Prohibit annexation across legislative districts without the consent of the legislative delegation of the proposed annexed locale. Prohibit annexation by land owned by the United States of America, a political subdivision, department, agency, or by county commission of the state of Maryland without the consent of the respective entity. Prohibit annexation of property owned by a tax-exempt religious or entity without the consent of the respective entity. And insist on processes of thorough community involvement, such as public hearings, consultations, transparent and comprehensive planning that thoroughly considers the implications of annexation, thus ensuring that all stakeholders have an equitable say. As I conclude, let me emphasize that addressing the challenge of annexation across legislative districts is not merely an administrative task. It's a moral imperative. We must uphold the integrity of our communities and ensure that every citizen has a meaningful voice in their representation. By enacting thoughtful limitations, we can foster stronger, unified communities that honor residents' identities while ensuring equitable services and representation. Remember, not everyone wants to live or own property within a municipality. Those individuals who have purchased property made a conscious decision on where they want to live or own property. I'm requesting a favorable report on HB 1525, and I thank you for your consideration. You should have sent to you some amendments that really just kind of mirror what is in the suggestions. I also wanted to make sure that it's clearly understood that I'm not advocating if there's a split district, like an A or B or C, that it is the whole number as opposed to, so if it's a legislative district 24, it is the entirety of 24, or 47, which has an A or B, it's the entirety of 47 and not just one. There was a concern that was brought to me by one community who is within a B district, and that municipality is within a B district. And if they wanted to pick up some of the incorporated area that may be in a district, but it's still the same number, that is not precluded. So I hope I was clear in explaining that. But Mr. Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any questions for this witness? Delegate Morgan.
Thank you. Delegate Harris, thank you for the bill. We had a bill earlier this session from Delegate Barnes on, I think, something similar. And I become concerned as you make this state legislation. I think I want to thank you very much for explanation. If you have an A, B, or a C, it doesn't affect it. But if you have I think you used 47. If it's 47, it has to be treated in unanimity. Whereas if you have an A, B, or C, this bill would not apply. Is that fair?
It would not apply to the A or the B or the C, but it's just the entirety. So if it's a 27C, then 27C would not be able to annex in 28. But if it were 27B, then they could.
It could. So 27A could annex 27B, but 27A could annex 28C. For that.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any way this could be enabling legislation?
I think that I want to push forward as it is.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Delegate Harrison. If you get tired of those meals, you can always come back to the Environment and Transportation Committee.
Then we can have oysters.
That concludes House Bill 1525. Is someone here on behalf, is Delegate Roberts here, or someone on behalf of Delegate Roberts? Okay, how about Delegate Wells? Delegate Arentz? How about Delegate Terrassa, House Bill 1496? Building code construction and significant renovation of housing units, electric vehicle parking spaces.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Madam Vice Chair and esteemed members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Jen Terrassa, and I was still working on my testimony, but I'll do my best. So thank you for this opportunity to present House Bill 1496, which relates to the installation of EV charging equipment. Basically, would require it in multifamily housing, which includes townhouses that don't have garages and don't have driveways. And as you may recall, we handled those in previous years. I've been working on this for some 5 years here, and before that, I did this in the Howard County government. We required it in all new construction, and that has worked well. So just as the committee is well aware, Maryland currently has adopted the Advanced Clean Car 2 and Advanced Clean Trucks because transportation is the largest source of climate pollution in Maryland. That's according to MDE. And electric vehicles are one of the best opportunities we have to achieve reductions in greenhouse gases. And over the long term, that'll be the state's largest existing climate pollution reduction strategy. You may have heard that the Speaker Pro Tem Stein has a bill that we'll hear maybe right after this or soon after this, that would delay implementation of the penalties associated with the, I believe, we'll have to hear what he has to say, but I believe it is just on the penalties. But it still keeps in place the requirement, I believe. Yes, I'm seeing a head nod, good. So I'm not surprised, and you shouldn't be surprised that we need this bill here, this, my bill. We heard the reasons why during the joint hearing that we had with EEE earlier this session, and one of the main reasons they cited for the problem here is that we have a lack of reliable charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. So we know what we need to do is get more infrastructure in place. Marylanders have been buying more EVs, and there's greater options available, as you know. And according to MDE's presentation, as of December 2024, there are 126,986 zero-emission vehicles registered in the state. That is an increase of 433% in 4 years from what we had in 2020. So again, the issue is being able to charge these vehicles and basically, if you listen to the presentation earlier this session, multiple sources, multiple of the folks testifying before us mentioned that what we really need is there's a significant need for that infrastructure at home, or we're not going to get drivers to switch over to gas-powered vehicles. I mean, from gas-powered vehicles. Personally, I wouldn't buy an electric vehicle if I couldn't charge at home, and that's why this bill deals with some of the challenges we have. I'll skip that. What I was going to say is basically this bill ensures that electric vehicles are accessible not just in single-family home to single-family home residents, but also to townhouses and multifamily, and applies to housing units not covered in the previous bill. And so what it says is that during construction or significant renovation of 2 or more housing units, so that's generally townhouses or multifamily, they must install at least one EVSE installed space and additional EVSE installed space for each 25 residential units. So why is this so important? If we want people to abandon their gas-powered vehicles and instead use EVs, then they have to be able to charge at home. And so the only option we have if we don't get that infrastructure at home is to do retrofitting, and that presents a lot of challenges. It can be 2 to 4 times more expensive than installation during new construction, and nearly impossible in townhouse communities where each home does not have a driveway or a garage. I've talked about this in the past and shown you pictures of cords draped across the sidewalk from somebody's house to their individual parking space, and some homeowners associations allow that to happen for a certain amount of time, and then somebody complains and they worry about that being a tripping hazard or what have you, and they stop it. So then the option is for the HOA to allow for installation in some of our common space, and that has become a problem as well. I have another piece of legislation on that. I'll remind you that funding is available to help in this effort. MEA announced in January the launch of new efforts to build the number of EV chargers in apartments and often overlooked communities statewide. So in conclusion, requiring installation of vehicle charging infrastructure in new construction renovation will help Maryland meet our goals. And if we want folks to switch to electric vehicles, we need to make it possible for them to plug in conveniently. I urge a favorable report.
Thank you, Delegate Terrassa, for pinch hitting for us. We appreciate it. Are there any questions on this bill? Delegate Healy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very interested in the bill. I'm curious about how you
Delegate Healy, I'm just having a little trouble hearing you.
Okay, I can't move the microphone.
Well, just if you lift it up, I think might help.
How's that?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, I am interested in the bill, but I'm curious about how the logistics of how you make an older community that has this is for when they do have a designated spot for the local.
No, we already passed a law that required.
Okay, so this is not about the ones that it's a designated spot. It's for a communal use.
I'm sorry, I am actually said that incorrectly. It's about if you don't have a designated spot that's like in a driveway or in a carport, so attached to your home in some way.
But
yes,
you might have a designated spot like in a parking lot nearby.
Right.
Okay, or a small parking lot.
Right. So in a townhouse community, what that would mean, I understand what you're saying.
I'm just talking about if it's a designated spot.
Okay.
Connected to a particular
Yes.
unit. Okay, so is that what this bill addresses? A designated spot for a particular, you buy or rent
No, what this probably would do in in communities, like HOAs or condos or.
Right.
Is to have jointly owned spaces have metered.
Right, and it's a proportional, small number. I mean, it's a small, it's not 100%.
It's not 100%. It increases
Okay.
over
got it.
time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any further questions on this bill? Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for bringing this bill. I think it's great, and I'm glad you're doing it. My question is, have you given thought to parking spots for disabled drivers and how this would or wouldn't affect that? And as a part of that question, do you think that it might be a good idea to put something in the bill that says that this should not take away from, handicapped parking spaces? In other words, you're requiring like 10%, but we want to make sure that that 10% doesn't impinge on the disability parking spaces that are available.
I'm
that are
happy
required.
Thank you for the question. I'm happy to see that as an addition, but what I believe is those spaces are required for people with disabilities. They are required to be there. So whatever that requirement is, this wouldn't interfere with it, but if that needs clarification, I appreciate the question and I'd be happy to have that.
Thank you. And one little follow-up. Would you also be willing to consider, setting aside some of these spaces for disabled EV drivers?
So
That might be difficult, but.
I hadn't given them any thought, but I think it's a really important point and a good idea. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how it exactly would work, but I'm happy to see that happen. It's a great idea.
Okay, any further questions? Great, thanks again for going up so quickly, Delegate. I appreciate it. We'll turn to Delegate Roberts, HB 1527, Illegal Dumping and Litter Control Law, Video Evidence and Reward Programs.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be able to introduce this bill. Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, I am Delegate Denise Roberts, testifying in support of House Bill 1527, which, before I get to the bill, is set to become a Prince George's County delegation bill by way of an amendment that will be coming forth very soon. This bill will allow Prince George's County to establish a program authorizing members of the public to submit video evidence of illegal dumping or littering violations and receive half of the total fines collected if their evidence leads to a conviction. According to a 2020 Keep America Beautiful study, they estimated that there was nearly 50 billion pieces of litter along United States roadways and waterways at the time of the study. For many, that is an unfathomable number, and when accounting for the U.S. population, 50 billion pieces of litter equates to an astonishing 152 pieces of litter for every U.S. resident. Across the nation, U.S. residents agree that litter is a problem where they live. 90% of U.S. residents reported that litter is a problem in their state, and most Americans understand that litter has a strong negative impact on their communities. We recognize that litter negatively affects the environment, waterways, property taxes, home values, tourism, and businesses, quality of life and health and safety for Maryland communities. Illegal dumping and littering also places a heavy burden on local governments. The Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration spends approximately $8 million annually to clean up litter. The money generated from fines could substantially offset these costs, as fines for illegal dumping range from $500 to $1,500. depending on the severity of the offense. By encouraging residents to report violations through video evidence, this will increase the number of reported offenses, leading to higher fine collections and additional revenue for the state. Law enforcement agencies across Maryland are grappling with significant staffing shortages impacting their capacity to enforce various laws, including those against illegal dumping and littering. In Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Howard County, and Baltimore County, there are significant and severe staffing shortages and vacancies. With these shortages, law enforcement is struggling to address littering violations amid rising gun violence, robberies, homicides, and other more immediate, pertinent dangers to society. Given these challenges, it is imperative to explore alternative methods to address illegal dumping and littering. House Bill 1527 proposes a solution by empowering residents to take an active role in reporting violations. It also fosters a collaborative environment where the community and law enforcement work together to maintain cleaner and safer public spaces. The bill rewards those who contribute to the enforcement of litter control laws, creating a direct financial incentive for residents to act and report violations. With this bill, everyone plays a role in reducing pollution and enhancing the quality of life in Maryland. Other states, such as California and Florida, have implemented similar programs with tremendous success. In California, the Report It program allows residents to report illegal dumping and receive a reward if their evidence leads to a conviction. And similarly, Florida's Keep Florida Beautiful program partners with local communities to incentivize reporting of littering and illegal dumping, resulting in higher revenue generation and greater public involvement. Maryland can mirror the success of these states and create a sustainable revenue-generating mechanism that can be reinvested into local environment programs and cleanup efforts. The financial rewards generated by fines will help fund future cleanup projects, while the incentive for public participation will ensure that communities continue to stay engaged in addressing these concerns. Additionally, it is important to recognize the mental health aspect of littering. Research has shown that litter can negatively impact mental health by creating an aesthetically displeasing environment that can lead to feelings of stress and anxiety. Clean and green spaces have been proven to have positive effects on mental well-being, and reducing litter can contribute to creating a healthier and more pleasant environment for all residents. I would also just like to make note that this bill is a cross-file bill in the Senate that is already on third reading. This legislation offers a proactive approach to litter enforcement and provides the necessary resources for Maryland to build cleaner, safer, and more sustainable communities. And I urge the committee to vote favorably in support of HB 1527 to help us help ourselves. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. A question from Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is currently a statewide bill, and you want to make it just a Prince George's County bill?
Yes, the cross-file in the Senate what has been amended to be a Prince George's County bill. So we're working the process for it to become a delegation bill.
Okay. I love the idea. I would love to see it be statewide.
I would too.
Thank you.
Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate, for this bill. I share your concerns and priorities about the connections between health, environment, and well-being. Your bill reminds me a little bit of a bill that the Baltimore City delegation passed last year, and I was just looking for it. I can't find it at the tip of my fingers, but it was quite similar, and that bill last year authorized the Baltimore City Department of Public Works to make available video footage of environmental crimes and make that video footage available to the public so that residents of Baltimore City could look at that video and help DPW identify environmental criminals.
Yes.
So that's that bill became effective, and it's rolling out now and being implemented now. It could be interesting to learn from our experience to strengthen your bill or maybe harmonize, but I think my question is, because I'm supposed to have a question. Isn't that so?
Yes, that is so.
Yes,
Is that the answer to the question?
Well, really.
Any further
Thank you.
questions on this bill? Great, thank you, Delegate Roberts.
Thank you.
All right now, House Bill 1533, the Vice Chair. On behalf of Baltimore City, Motor Vehicle Administration Records, access to digital photographic images and signatures.
Why are you running?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the leeway. For the record, I'm Regina T. Boyce, here to present on behalf of our chair, Baltimore City Delegation Chair, Delegate Melissa Wells, HB 1533, Motor Vehicle Administrative Records, access to digital photographic images and signatures. Baltimore City, essentially the bill just authorizes MVA to make records available, whether they're digital photographic images or signatures of an individual, available to our special investigations unit of the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development, to enforce specified provisions of state law regarding illegal dumping and litter control. As we understand, MVA already has procedures in place for providing access to digital photographic images and signatures. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to City. I hope you can give us a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. So my name is Nina Themlis, Director of Government Affairs for Mayor Scott in Baltimore City, to testify in support of HB 1533. Delegate Lewis had just mentioned the companion bill to this bill that were both introduced last year. Currently, our Special Investigations Unit has access to certain records through the MVA. It is a secure site. Everybody has a unique login. There are records kept for every time any individual logs into that system, but there's one piece of information that the Special Investigations Unit currently does not have access to, and that is the MVA photos. So our Investigations Unit has really ramped up, added over 100 extra cameras over the past couple of years, have really been aggressively trying to prosecute our repeat illegal dumpers. We have a huge problem in Baltimore City with over 15,000 service requests per year and an additional 20,000 complaints for illegal dumping alone in the city. And so this bill would just allow for the Special Investigations Unit specifically to gain that third level of access so that they can connect a vehicle and their license plate to photographic images that they see on our illegal dumping cameras, to then that person's, the owner of that vehicle's driving record, so that then they can bring those cases before the court for prosecution. And with that, I would just urge a favorable report on House Bill 1533.
Thank you. We have a question from Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe this question is for you, or maybe it's for the sponsor of the bill. So yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, it seems like it, we passed a bill out of this committee that would have sequestered some of the photos and kept them private from speed cameras and the like. Does this bill have any relation to that?
If I can answer, yeah. So this is just for driver's license photos that are part of the MVA record. This would not have any it has nothing to do with like the speed cameras or any other automated enforcement photographs. And then the illegal dumping footage is kept locally by the city with the Special Investigations Unit, so I do not believe that those would conflict. Yeah, so the photos of the licenses are not obtained by automated traffic enforcement. How are they obtained?
Hi, David McGinnis, Director, Special Investigations Unit, Baltimore Department of Housing and Community Development. The photos, we use trail cameras deployed throughout the city to capture illegal dumping in known hotspots.
I see, okay.
And we would like, when we capture those on camera, to have access to their MVA photo as a comparison as part of our investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Healy.
Do other institutions have access to these? I mean, is this setting a precedent for some organization to look at the MVA photos? Or do the local police have them? Does somebody else have access to this kind of data?
So right now, under existing state law, the Baltimore Police Department is the entity within the city that performs that specific search. But due to the workload of the police department, it can sometimes take several weeks or longer for them to be able to get to that request and process it, where we had a case recently where there was someone that was caught illegally dumping 9 times. And when they were going to bring file suit on the 9th occasion was when they finally were able to retrieve that MVA photo. So this is just to kind of remove some burden from the police department. That's more of an administrative task and allow for a quicker process to take place.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any further questions on the bill? Okay, thank you both, or thank you all, I should say. That concludes Bill House Bill 1533. Do we have Josh from Delegate Arontz's office here? Yep. All right, we'll move to HB 1236. Josh, on behalf of Delegate Arentz, Queen Anne's County Municipalities Speed Limits.
Good afternoon, Chairman Corman and members of the committee. For the record, I am Josh Mass, on the intern for Delegate Stephen Ahrens, here to present HB 1236, Queen Anne's County Municipalities Speed Limits. This bill will allow Queen Anne's County to decrease the maximum speed limit to not less than 15 miles per hour on a highway without performing an engineering and traffic investigation. Baltimore City is currently authorized to decrease the maximum speed limit on a highway already under its jurisdiction. Thank you for consideration, and I urge a favorable report, and I'll turn it over to the panel.
Yes, good afternoon. I am Teresa Hagerstrom. I am the chair of the Queenstown Speeding and Street Safety Task Force. Our task force was created 2 years ago after a speeding driver. Our task force was created 2 years ago after a speeding driver lost control of his vehicle in our town center, hitting a telephone pole and crashing into our town office. Working with the State Highway Administration, we have instituted all the traffic calming devices allowable on state highways, including zebra crosswalks, painting the center lines wider, and electronic speed indicators, all in an effort to slow traffic down. Our town center is located on 2 state highways, Route 18, Main Street, and Route 456, Delrose Avenue. It is a very congested, busy space with our town offices, a bank, a restaurant, and the U.S. Post Office. In the area, there is nose-in and parallel parking and 2 parking lots. On the east side, there is a hidden crosswalk at a very sharp curve that can only be safely negotiated at 12 to 15 miles per hour. There aren't any curve ahead signs. Nearby, on the narrowest portion of Main Street, is our busy 5-bay volunteer fire and emergency services department and a popular day spa business. For the safety and well-being of our town residents and visitors, it is imperative that drivers are able to safely navigate our roadways. The current minimum state highway speed limit of 25 miles per hour is simply too high for our town center. We support Bill HB 1236, which will allow us to take the necessary steps to adapt the speed limits to our town's particular and unique needs. Thank you, Delegates Arntz, Briss, and Jacobs for sponsoring this bill, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members.
Thank you. We have a question from Vice Chair Boyce.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for being here. I do have a clarifying question. One of the reasons why Baltimore City was allowed to have the authority is because they already had a complete streets plan for which they had already done engineering studies. And so the question for me is whether or not you've already done either a complete streets plan or already have done an engineering study that would have already in a plan that would suggest speed limit reductions.
Well, we actually requested one, and there was not budget for it the year that we requested it. That was the state highway out of Chestertown, I believe. And they put everything on hold. We're not a big, we're a population of 700.
Understood.
But we do get a lot of the Route 301 traffic through us, which has increased. And I think we're due for a study, but there's no budget for it. It's not a high priority, but for us, it's a priority for the safety of our residents. We're very outside community, people walking dogs. There's a lot of young families pushing baby carts with their young children. And, you know, frankly, our town area, there's not much space to run off the road for security. We're right up against the street there. The sidewalks are.
Yeah, I certainly understand that, and I think every locality should be able to set their speed limits as it relates to lowering them. But I just want to clarify that the others have been granted that permission, and so that they didn't have to again do another engineering study.
Right,
so
but
we would have to find a way to work through that.
Right, but also it's not just our community that would like to have this. There's other municipalities that face the same things. We're some of the older towns established, and everything was done on the horse and buggy scale. Right. And, you know, the larger vehicles just have a hard time passing one another on our streets to begin with.
And so just for clarification, we want this bill to help to be able to set or lower these speed limits because there isn't funding to do a full out.
Well, yeah, there's not.
Sure.
And we're not a priority. We're too small. Yeah, thank you.
Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and salute Delegate Arentz and his colleagues for this bill, and thank you to the panel. And intern, you did a good job. Thank you for bringing this before us. As I recall, about 5 years ago, the state of Maryland passed legislation to establish a complete streets grant funding program. And I was just checking online to see if I could find any evidence of it. There are folks who would be more expert and more informed than I about the status of that program and whether funding is available. But one of the things we wanted to do, that the legislature really wanted to do, was make it easier for towns, municipalities, anywhere in the state to take advantage of these traffic calming, pedestrian safety initiatives. And I think I would never say we're only 700. That's 700 Marylanders who deserve to feel safe.
I agree.
So I just wanted to mention that and ask if you had considered pursuing state funding for complete streets planning. There may be funding available.
That's actually our town office manager who does that, and I'm pretty sure she's looked into this because we've been pursuing this for over 2 years, and we did work with the State Highway Administration to do some of these these devices, but it's not really enough for our community. We have a very unusual town center that is a total blind spot for many vehicles coming through, and we're getting again a lot of traffic that's diverting off of 301, and they don't know what our roadways are like, that they need to slow down. They just barrel through the town.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Any further Delegate Jacobs.
Queenstown is 318 years old, right?
And
So the width,
1707, yes.
that's right, same as Rock Hall. So it's
Okay.
the same, the width of the streets there, are they narrow streets?
It depends where, well,
I mean, where you're trying to do this?
it's on Main Street, if you know Queenstown, at about the level of I guess it's the Episcopal Church, Dudley, on around that curve, if you know that curve, have taken the curve.
Around the curve, around the bend.
That empties into a square. Technically, it's kind of a square, which is where all the bank and the restaurant and everything is situated, and all the parking is there. There's nose-in parking, people backing out into both lanes. That area is wider, and then going out of town towards the golf course is wider. It's wide open, so you get a lot of speeders there. But one of the main problems is that right before the curve is the fire department with their fire engines coming in and out, and the street is, I believe the lanes are 10 feet wide on the street, then it's right up to the curb, and then our houses are right there.
That was my question, was how narrow they were.
Yeah.
And I think the main problem is you got traffic coming off of 50 that's diverting because of the backups.
Right, on 301, yes.
And they're coming in there pretty hot when they come in.
Yeah, real hot.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1236. We're going to jump down to House Bill 1197. Minority Whip Pippi on behalf of Frederick County Delegation, Sheriff Salary. As you all saw on the floor this morning, the Whip requested a second bill hearing because this bill was reassigned. It was reassigned because in 2024, HB 78 was in this committee. In 2023, HB 713 was in this committee. And in 2022, SB 746 was in this committee. So we want to keep the good times rolling and make sure that House Bill 1197 is in this committee where it belongs. Minority Leader Whip, or Minority Whip, thank you for being here on such short notice. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I wasn't sure of the procedure. If a bill's transferred, it has to have a hearing. I didn't know. So I appreciate your indulgence and professional courtesy to get it on the agenda quickly and get it rocking. So Delegate Pippi, for the record, I'm the chairman of the Frederick County Delegation in support of HB 1197. We have put in, over the last 5 years, an attempt to raise one of the salaried positions in our county. As this committee is probably well aware, local jurisdictions have been dealing with salary increases ranging from registrar of wills, clerk of the court, delegates, senators, sheriffs, councilmen in Frederick County. Every single position has been raised in one situation or not, except one. Matter of fact, the sheriff's position has not been raised since 2005. I think there's been a little bit of politics injected into that situation. So what we did this year is we put together a bipartisan work group. So in Frederick County, we have Democrats and Republicans. And so we assigned an equal amount of Democrat senators and delegates and Republican senators and delegates to come up with a workable solution. So that subcommittee met, and the amended version of the bill that this committee has before them was that compromise. So again, this was a compromise between both Republicans and senators, Republicans and Democrats, both delegates and senators, to increase the salary of a position. By the way, it is unconstitutional to increase a salary midterm. So this salary increase, should it pass, would not kick in until the next election, whoever that person is. And as we understand it, it could be one of many different people, because there are certainly other people looking at that position. So what was put forward was a salary amount. It equates to 82.5% of the state's attorney's salary in Frederick County. We pulled a list of every salary in the state for every sheriff, and there is a significant amount of salaries for much smaller counties. For example, Kent County, Talbot, St. Mary's, Frederick's a relatively large county, almost 300,000 people. It's also a full-service sheriff's office, meaning that the sheriff actually enforces the law in addition to running the prisons. And so the distinction would be, for example, in Montgomery County, they're not necessarily on the street. They're doing more court work, delivering subpoenas. There's other tasks, obviously. But in Frederick County, it's a full-service sheriff's office with hundreds of employees. It's a fairly large agency. We only highlight that for the fact that if you compare the size of our county, by the way, it's the largest geographical county in the state, you equate that to the largest area to monitor, the corrections facility, the full service role of the sheriff, the position is woefully underpaid. And so we asked that this committee consider this bipartisan request. It's also a local courtesy. I've obviously provided the vote sheet to the committee leaders here. Hopefully they've seen that. And we want to put this issue to bed. And this is not about one person. It's about a position. And there could very well be a different person in that position if that's a concern of certain members of this committee. But every single position, including ours, have gotten salary increases over the years. This position has not been changed since 2005, 20 years. And so we ask that you give the courtesy of our delegation and our county a favorable on this bill, and I do appreciate the chairman expediting this proceeding and allowing me to come testify before you today. Thank you.
Great, and I appreciate that you recognize when a dollar amount hasn't changed in a long period of time, it can make sense to adjust it upward. Any questions on the bill? Delegate Healy.
My question is just simply because of the, the limitation that you cited, that it could not go into effect until after the next election, why it's here this year instead of next year, for example?
Well, I'll tell you, so we've put this bill in like 5 years in a row. And we would have preferred to have put it in 5 years ago before the last election. And what we have found is that there's just been some challenges with it. And so, look, I think this is the year to take care of it. Next year is an election year. And again, the increase would not kick in until 2027. So for whoever wins the election. I don't want to punt this down the road anymore. I think this is something that we should do in a non-election year. Because look, do you really want to be voting on this in an election year? I mean, that's a question for you to ask yourselves. But I think this is a local bill that has bipartisan support of our county, and we just ask for that courtesy to move forward.
Any additional questions? Delegate Baker.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity to ask a question. On the fiscal note, it talks about local expenditures, and you've provided us with some percentages. You talked about geographical sizes of the counties, but you didn't give us any numbers.
Sure.
So I would like to, for my information, I'd like to know
absolutely.
what numbers you're talking about.
So as a comparison, so the salary is set right now at $125,000. And just to rattle off a few numbers, if it helps here, but Washington County, which is significantly smaller, the sheriff's salary is $146. I think that was just increased.
Correct.
St. Mary's County is $187. Queen Anne's County is $171. Talbot County is $126. So what
are you proposing for Frederick County?
Sure. So the proposal is 82.5% of the state's attorneys for Frederick County, which equates to 187,313 currently. We looked at every single jurisdiction, the size, the scope of work that the sheriff has to do in comparison to other areas. So we think this is in line with the size. It's kind of on the lower end. And by the way, in that subcommittee, this was the compromise because there were some folks that wanted a higher salary, and our colleagues across the aisle said, you know what, let's compromise. They came up with a lower number, and we split the baby, so to speak. And so this was the voted on compromise among both sides of the aisle, which was 187,313. And obviously, it would go up, like if the state's attorney's salary goes up over time, then this would follow that at 82.5%. But it's on the lower end. I mean, if you think about what circuit court judges make, other counties, for example, will do it as a percentage of the circuit court, which is $200,000.
Okay, thank you. That's all the information.
Yeah, there's a lot of info.
Washington County is 150,000 people.
Delegate.
Yeah, we're 300, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The county government's in support of this.
Yeah, so the money, ironically, we have to approve it, but the money would come out of the county government. They have not provided any opposition to this bill. We've certainly reached out to them. Their position is neutral. So they're not in opposition to an increase. I think they've been on the record for that. And it's a constitutional position, which means that the General Assembly has to set the amounts. And that's the challenge here.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, thank you, Delegate Pippi. We are going to turn to Carroll County Delegation, Delegate Boucher, HB 832, Natural Resources, Sunday Hunting. Delegate Boucher, thanks for your patience. There are a number of witnesses signed up in your bill, so I was trying to move through the people who had no witnesses.
Before I proceed, Chairman, I just want this committee to know that this hunting bill has nothing to do with hunting roosters.
There are a number of witnesses signed up in your bill, so I was trying to move through the people who had no witnesses.
Before I proceed, Chairman, I just want this committee to know that this hunting bill has nothing to do with hunting. Needs to be muted or something. Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chairman Boyce, and distinguished members of ENT. I am, for the record, Delegate Christopher Eric Boucher, District 5, representing Carroll and Frederick counties. I am the resident hunter of the delegation, so I drew this straw to present this bill. This bill unanimously came out of our delegation, and it is a real simple bill. We want to add Sunday hunting to our hunting repertoire to maintain our deer herd. Carroll County's #1 industry is agriculture, and our farmers take a loss every year from overpopulation of deer, which impact their harvest. It can be the difference between making a profit, breaking even, or taking a loss. So by adding Sunday hunting, we hope to add more hunting resources to help our farmers out. And there's also another aspect of Sunday hunting in September as well. We depend very heavily upon our senior citizens to do this duty for us, and they are aging out, and there's less youth hunters coming in. By adding Sunday hunting, which is the warmer weather, we're going to give grandparents, both male and females, a chance to hunt with their grandchildren and bring them into the fold to learn and accept the heritage of our county. And we hope that this will be a long-term investment that will replace our senior citizens that are aging out. Another aspect of this bill is also our elderly hunters, and I have one, my father's 85, I take him out hunting. At 85, he is less prone to go hunting as the season progresses. He gets much colder. He's worried about falling down in the snow and in the sleet. So by adding Sunday hunting, we hope to offset the loss we have on the tail end of the season. At present, we have Sunday hunting from October to the end of January. September hunting is archery only, so there's no booms or bangs to scare anyone off, and I don't think deer go to church on Sundays. So I think this is a very good bill, and I hope that this committee is supportive of it. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Just so you know, your other favorite witness who's virtual is not here, but we do have a question from Vice Chair Boyce.
Thank you, delegates, so much for bringing this bill. I want to clarify your testimony. The bill says allowing a person in Carroll County to hunt any game, bird, or mammal on each Sunday during open season for that game, bird, or mammal. You said deer. Which one is it?
It's all of the hunting. I'm sorry. I'm personally a deer hunter.
I hear you. I just want to clarify for the
Thank
committee. It is as it stands in the bill.
It's all hunting.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public service announcement for all our virtual witnesses. When it's your turn to testify, shut off the YouTube that you're watching me on, because it's going to create feedback when you get unmuted and start testifying. So shut off your YouTube. If you're in the Zoom now, you don't need your YouTube up anymore. I do not see any more questions for the sponsor, so thank you, Delegate Boucher. We have some in-person unfavorable testimony. Christy Claggett, Barbara Saulner-Webb. Are either of you here? Yep, come on down. And please go ahead when you're ready.
Is there a possibility to have the virtual Zoom people go first, or do you want us to go first? Okay. Good afternoon, committee. I'm Christy Claggett, a resident of Harwood, Maryland, a farmer, rider, and member of the Maryland Horse Legislative Committee. And I ask you to oppose House Bill 832. You'll be hearing in virtual from actual residents of Carroll County. I'm not a resident, but I represent all Marylanders that do go and ride in Carroll County, both public and private land. This is just not a Carroll County issue. It affects all Marylanders that use their beautiful county. There's a vibrant horse industry in Carroll County. It's got 8,000 horses. It's got 1,700 stables. It's using about 41,500 acres. And it's got a total capital expenditure in the horse industry of $13.3 million. So it's a very strong industry there. Currently, Carroll County has 15 all-day Sundays and then all-day turkey season for the fall, winter, and spring season. So there are plenty of opportunities to hunt on Sundays. Also, Sunday has not resulted in higher deer kill. It's just resulted in people and hunters using the convenience of Sunday, and they use that day instead of, and they don't raise the kill rate. So horsemen support the hunter's right to hunt, but not to the exclusion of others to recreate on Sunday. As a weapon-free day. We ask Sunday to be a weapon-free day. So please, your private land use is not just yours. You affect your neighbors. So recreational trail riders are a large section of the horse industry. They use a combination of private and public trails, and Sunday is the day that we go out to avoid hunters. So all Sundays, all species, all day is a lot of alls. basically, we want Sunday hunting on private land to be limited and non-hunters use a weapon-free day. Thank you. You're next.
Hi, I'm Barbara Salner-Webb, who for many years has often ridden in and organized horse trail rides in the many gorgeous riding venues in Carroll County. One of the 2 counties with the best parks riding venues in the whole state. Please also read the written testimony submitted by Judy Thatcher, Carroll County resident, and by Susan Gray, who is writing for a driving club with very many Carroll County members who also strongly oppose HB 832. So again this year, there are a plethora of Sunday hunting bills. So again, we average citizens are here testifying that it's completely unfair that the well-funded hunting industry, which already has 6 days of every week for shooting lethal weapons outdoors, wants to try to get that 7th day, which traditionally has been reserved as the only day of the week that the non-hunting 98% of the population can enjoy our area's lovely green areas without fear of being shot at. Carroll County is especially important to non-hunter outdoor enthusiasts because it has some of the best riding and hiking venues of the state, including Morgan Run, McKeldin, Patapsco, Union Mills, Piney Run, Liberty, Gillis Falls, etc. I've ridden at all of these, but only on Sundays to avoid the fear of getting shot at, since on the other days, hunting is permitted on the abutting private land. And as you surely appreciate, hunting projectiles do not stop at the property boundaries, but far too often travel into the abutting public parkland where many trails are near the property boundary. Indeed, I'm one of the many outdoor enthusiasts who has been, while recreating in a public area, shot at by a hunter from private land, in fact, 3 times shot at, once with a lethal projectile zipping less than 2 feet from my ear, which is not a fun experience. Now, presumably these great hunters thought that my white riding helmet, orange safety vest, and white horse below me looked exactly like a 5-point deer. So please give us non-hunters 1 day a week to enjoy Maryland's wonderful parks.
Thank you. Delegate Ruth, can I take the virtual witnesses before we do 1 round of questions? Great. Thank you. We'll start with Jane Siegler with the Maryland Horse Council.
Again, my name is Jane Sigler. I'm here representing the Maryland Horse Council, which is the statewide trade association for the entire horse industry in Maryland. Majority of Marylanders oppose Sunday hunting. A statewide poll by Gonzalez Research found that almost 70% of respondents oppose Sunday hunting and 53% strongly oppose. Even DNR's own survey found that a majority of the general population does not favor Sunday hunting and does not want to see it expanded. Hunters, both resident and non-resident, total less than 2% of the population. This bill would allow all-day Sunday hunting on every Sunday of the year in Carroll County because there is open season on some species throughout the year, and on 2 species, it is year-round, literally. As Vice Chair Boyce pointed out, this bill is not just about deer. It plainly refers to all game birds and all game mammals. Since the pandemic, widespread use of outdoor recreation by the general public has increased dramatically. Many of these new users are unfamiliar with the rules of hunting and hunting seasons. We have separately submitted with our testimony a 9-page report of hunting incidents from 2007 to 2023, compiled from DNR's own data showing that it's just not safe for others to be out in the woods when hunting is going on. 78% of the Gonzalez poll respondents said they would decide to alter their recreational plans to avoid hunters. In a Horse Council poll, 85% of respondents said they already changed their schedules or riding locations to avoid encountering hunters. We recognize that private landowners have some right to decide what uses they want to allow on their land, but such rights have never been absolute. As a practical matter, the public-private land distinction affords little relief since public and private tracts are often relatively small, non-contiguous, intertwined, and rarely well-marked. And projectiles do not respect property lines. I personally have found a hunting arrow embedded in the ground in the pasture where my horses were grazing. We urge an unfavorable report.
Thank you very much. We'll turn to Gina Miller.
Oh, good morning.
or afternoon. My name is Gina Miller, and I've been a lifelong resident of Carroll County. I strongly oppose the Sunday hunting bill. I'm a horse owner since the year 2000, currently have 2 horses. I believe that Sunday should remain a safe, non-hunting day for all the outdoor enthusiasts. As a trail rider, I avoid riding during hunting days because the sudden crack of the gunfire can startle the horses, causing them to spook, an extremely dangerous situation for riders. Additionally, as a woman, encountering armed individuals is unsettling. The risk of stray bullets also poses a real danger, not only to horseback riders, but also to hikers, walkers, and nature lovers who rely on public lands for recreation. Maryland's hunting calendar already provides hunters with opportunities year-round, allowing 6 days a week for their sport. Now, designating Sundays as a non-hunting day ensures that residents who seek peace and safety in the outdoors can continue to do so. I urge lawmakers to protect this balance and keep Sundays free from hunting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the next virtual witness is Galanatis. We'll go to Rebecca. Yes, please go ahead when you're ready.
My name is Lida Galanitis, and I have been a Carroll County resident for 49 years and horse owner for 48 years. I'm opposed to House Bill 832. Carroll County is home to over 6,000 horses with 1,700 stables. 41,500 acres are dedicated to equines, which account for 30% of farmland in Carroll. The equine industry, therefore, plays a major role in keeping our rural character. Carroll horse owners spend over $13 million yearly, which is a lot of hay. And while some owners participate in racing, fox chasing, showing, or the state sport of jousting, the #1 equine pastime is trail riding. Did you know someone from almost 10% of Maryland households trail rides? The current Maryland hunting calendar shows there is an open season all year. Sunday hunting would mean year-round hunting on that day. Currently, Sunday hunting for deer is allowed during the firearms and bow seasons. Hunting does intensify in the fall, which is a preferred season for trail riders with less mud and insects with moderate weather. The vast majority of riders, including myself, do not wish to ride when there is hunting. A surprise gunshot can spook even the most well-trained horse, and an errant bullet can enter a park, a neighboring property, or a road from private land. It also impacts others, such as walkers, hikers, runners, cyclists, photographers, nature lovers, and bird watchers. Hunters already have Saturdays and the other days of the week to enjoy their hobby. Some parks have certain days of the week reserved for hunting, which gets confusing. Why not designate Sundays as the day everyone else knows is a non-hunting day on the calendar? Individuals, families, and friends can safely use the parks without worrying if it is a hunting day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last virtual witness, Rebecca, I'm going to mess up this last name, Paragoy. Rebecca?
Hello.
Thank you. I'm sorry I mispronounced your last name. Can you pronounce it?
It's Paragoy.
Paragoy, sorry. You may begin.
Thank you so much. My name is Rebecca Paragoy. I'm a lifelong horse owner. I'm a United States Army veteran, and I'm a Carroll County resident since I was 13 years old. I have 4 horses and participate in most of the equine events that you can participate in, including trail riding. I trail ride almost every weekend when I can, but I have to adjust my plans often because of the hunting seasons, especially in the fall. A lot of times I end up having to go to like the canal, where it's a public national park on very public lands with very busy traffic as far as pedestrians go, because it is a safe zone that you can safely traverse without having to worry about hunting. Hunters have every right to hunt, and that should be established, but they have 7 days a week in the fall during deer season to hunt, because they already have Sunday hunting in the fall in Carroll County, and they have 6 other days the rest of the year. So we would just like to ask for 1 day a week that is reserved to non-hunting. As a veteran, I also would like to say that hunter safety is very important, and that cannot always be assured when you're riding, that you don't ever want to be downrange of a bullet no matter where they're aiming at, and sometimes the bullets obviously don't always go where they're supposed to. They could traverse across private land, my friend had a bullet end up in her barn one time from several acres away. So also the public lands are used by hikers, horseback riders, mountain bikers, people with families, little children, people walking their dogs and pets, and any of those could be scared by random gunshots out of the blue if you're not expecting them. It could trigger PTSD in veterans. It can also scare small children. It can scare dogs who can run away. It can, of course, scare the horses and you could fall off. I would just like to ask that that the legislature opposes this, or the committee opposes this bill and protects a chance for non-hunters to use the parks and lands on Sundays.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We appreciate your testimony. At this time, I want to call Delegate Ruth for questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for being out here and for the virtual witnesses as well. And I certainly understand and sympathize with your perspective that safety is really important. And I know that some of you have had, close calls, as you've said, but we also hear from property owners who say they should be able to use their own private property, and that we're restricting what they can do on their own private property, which I think is also a fair question. And I understand bullets don't stop at the edge of the property line. I do understand that. So my question is, what about if there were a buffer that somebody could hunt on private property, but there's some like 100-foot or 200-foot buffer, whatever. Well, they would have to be ascertained, but that's something you'd be open to.
Well, we're certainly open to safety.
Yeah, but since bullets can fly half a mile, I mean, if you have half a mile buffer, sure. In the very rural areas, it makes great sense.
What about bow hunting? That's less, right?
That can go a quarter of a mile real easily. The arrow that went 2 feet from my head was fired from quite a distance away.
Okay.
But these are big, I mean, this is not the kind of thing you had in PE class when we were in junior high. These are big, lethal bow and arrow thingies.
I understand. It's difficult because I can see both sides
so
of it.
It's got to be a distance that's actually functional, 100 feet.
Understand. Thank you.
I'll ask a clarifying question later. Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, ladies, any of you just testified, I guess the opposition. I believe this, and I should have asked the sponsor of the bill, but my understanding is this is a private property only bill.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure you understand that. The second thing is, do any of you fox chase?
Yes, I do.
Do you do it on Sundays?
Yes.
You get permission from all the farms, the private properties that you go across?
Get permission from all the farms, yes.
That's what, so I mean, their private property is used for a number of things on Sundays, and I just wanted to clarify that you also did fox chasing on Sundays.
Right, but I have no weapon. I have no bullets or arrows.
But you're in pursuit of the fox, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Jacobs. Delegate Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies, always good to see you. Thanks for coming here today. I know we've talked a lot about safety. I know that's definitely your focus here, and I completely understand that. In the interest of compromise, I'm just throwing this out here. I haven't talked to the sponsor delegation, so forgive me. In the interest of compromise, would you guys be open to something like allowing hunting on Sundays, but then restricting hunting on like Wednesdays? So you still have that 1 day a week that.
I can't really speak for everybody else. I mean, I'll take Saturday if they want to give us Saturday.
But why not a Wednesday or a Tuesday?
A lot of the hunters, the riders work.
So do the hunters.
Right, so they already have one weekend day. So they're 2% of the, less than 2% of the population have one weekend day, and every weekday, the 98% of non-hunters right now don't even have all of the Sunday, the one weekend day.
Right.
So taking that away.
That was my point.
Seems numerically unfair.
That was my point. All right, well, agree to disagree. Thank you.
Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Any of you that have testified here about this, is trail riding, is Sunday the only day you trail ride?
No, but during a hunting season, we go out on Sundays because we know it's safe. So you don't really want to go out there and bother the hunter.
Well,
who's
I
out there.
understand in firearm season in 2 weeks and all that's makes sense because there's more proliferation of people out there. But
well, turkey season too.
So you go out on Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays as well as Sundays?
If we go out on the weekday, we try to pick a middle, like 12 o'clock time, but most people do ride on the weekends. They're all working. I mean, we're all working people. So Sunday, the weekends are the recreational day.
Thank you.
1 minute, Delegate Otto. I see Rebecca wanted to make a brief response on virtual.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't sure if we were allowed to answer questions. Yes, I wanted to back up what they were saying. I do trail ride on Saturdays and Sundays, but on Saturdays, I usually go to areas where their hunting is restricted. But I work 9 to 5 Mondays through Fridays for a biopharma company, so I cannot go riding during the week.
Thank you, Delegate Otto. Does that suffice? Would you like to ask another question? Okay, you're good. Delegate Terrassa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify what we're talking about, we keep calling this Sunday hunting, but we're really talking about everyday hunting if this bill passes. Is that correct?
Yes, because it would now there's 6 days, and I would add a 7th day.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they already have 6 days and some Sundays. So we're trying to preserve this little bit of this 1/7 of the calendar.
And your concern is that the hunting interferes with your ability to trail ride. Does your trail riding interfere with or cause danger or harm to any of the hunters?
We don't have any weapons, so I don't think we do.
I've never stepped on a hunter.
Thank you.
Delegate Lehman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Barbara Sellner-Webb, always good to see you. Always good to have a District 21 constituent here. I don't see any reason to compromise on this. 6 days a week is enough for hunting, in my view. I never support Sunday hunting in my own county or anyone else's. But my question is given this statistic about 98% of Marylanders are not hunters and only 2% are, I'm curious, and this is probably Jane Siegler would be best to answer. Is she still with us?
I am.
You are. Hi there, Jane. So I'm curious, and this year on these Sunday hunting bills, there have been more opposition witnesses than we've seen in past years. But why is it, do you think, with some of the counties, I forget which county it was recently, where they said, well, we held public hearings back in, whatever county it was, and not one single opponent came out. What do you attribute that to? Is there just a lack of awareness? Why do more people not speak up at the local level about these proposals to expand hunting to Sundays?
Thank you for the question. I think the other bills that we've seen this year have been Wicomico and Dorchester and PG, and I'm not a resident of any of those counties, so I don't really know. I can't speak to what they do to get the word out, but I can tell you that in my own county, I think it's safe to say that a majority of the citizens really don't know when their county council or their local delegation is going to have a hearing on something. There are various mechanisms to get the word out, but basically people have to want to be tuned in order to get that information. Otherwise, they don't sign up for the mailing lists and they don't sign up for the newsletters, and so they just don't know. And really, it's been the Horse Council's effort over these past 20-some years to try to compensate for that by getting the word out on these bills as best we can, which is why you tend to see more opposition witnesses at the state level than you do at the local level. That would be my guess.
Okay, thank you for that. That makes sense. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Rebecca, I see you have your hand up again if you want to briefly respond.
Sorry, I was muted. I just wanted to speak on that for Carroll County, if you don't mind. We did have people speak up in the county meeting, and that is actually how I found out about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Delegate Guyton.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here to defend the rights of quiet enjoyment for everybody, at least one day of the week. I appreciate that very much. Also live in an area where there is a lot of hunting and private lands around that have a lot of hunting too. So I know that that affects people other than horse riders. But I wanted to be specific about your testimony too, so people understand what would happen if, say, Delegate Jacobs suggested you could just share the private land with hunters on the same day when you were fox chasing. What effect does that gunfire have on your horses and your dogs during that fox chase?
Well, that is uncomfortable, but the hunters don't want us there moving game around and being in their way. So that's part of the reason why we hunt on days that they're not out there, to be considerate to them. But shot fire just is disconcerting to an animal and a person. Anything you want to say?
No, thank you. I'm just going to leave it there.
Delegate Baylor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just am wondering, this bill adds the Carroll County to a list of counties where this is already authorized. Has there ever been an instant of equestrian rider getting hurt in any of those counties where it's authorized? I'm looking at Allegheny, Cecil, Garrett, St. Mary's, Washington, and then there's a variety of counties that have the compromise that was drafted previously. So for any of those ones where it's fully authorized on Sundays, has there ever been an instant of hunter negative interaction with equestrian riders?
Negative interaction, absolutely.
Any harm?
Jane Siegler will know if there's any harm. I mean, I will say that 3 times having been shot at, once with the arrow whizzing less than 2 feet from my head, it was just chance that I wasn't killed. It's not fun. I pay taxes. Why can't I use the parks too? The hunters are 2% of the population, so they pay 2% of the taxes, and they already have 85% of the days to hunt at. Why doesn't the other 98% of the non-hunters get 1/7 of the days to enjoy the parks that our taxes pay for?
Can I address the accident reports? So DNR only publishes when they have identified a hunter and an incident. But if you go to police reports, as we did in Wicomico, there were numerous police reports talking about people filing that a shot had been shot into their house or an arrow went through their car door. And, nobody was found that was responsible for that, but it was definitely a hunter that was doing that. But, and actually I was wondering if there was, whether I should start trying to research veterinarians to see of animals that have been injured. I mean, in my own county of Anne Arundel County, we had a horse shot by a hunter who thought it was a deer.
Montgomery had one too.
Montgomery had one. We had another incident of an arrow stuck in a horse. I got shot at on my own property on a legal hunting Sunday in Anne Arundel County. I was on the perimeter of my own property. I'm not doing that anymore. I was behind a hedge and a bullet came whistling past. So I stay in a ring. It's not worth the chance.
Yeah, can I have one more question? I think my other question would just be, maybe this is a little rhetorical, but you could ride on a Saturday. You could ride on a Saturday if you wanted to, correct?
Right, and I could put a target on me too.
Just yes or no?
Yeah, there's no restriction on riding, but you don't really want to go out there and bother the hunter.
Thank you.
Guys, there are 5 more bills and 3 subcommittees are trying to meet, okay? And I know we all know this issue very well. Madam Vice Chair, do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. I just want to clarify, I think, somewhat of the elephant in the room that we have also discovered in committee. For certain individuals, I can have a crop damage permit and thereby hunt on Sundays at any time versus Sunday hunting for all these other groups, whether it's private or public. And I think to the point of Delegate Baylor, you know, it sounds like what you're potentially saying is that you'd rather not maybe or maybe not duck arrows and bullets during the week, but you want one more day, although there really hasn't been any incident. And so if it's okay for crop damage to be able to, for instance, shoot deer on Sunday at any time, then what is the difference then with Sunday hunting in general? You don't have to raise your hand. You can certainly respond.
Okay. Yeah, the crop damage tends to be on the larger properties. So that's what we were saying. If you could give a half-mile buffer at the edge of the property, then private hunting on private land on Sunday.
So you support it if there's a buffer
I mean,
on private land?
If it is a buffer that's big enough that would actually prevent.
And what does a buffer look like? Like, I don't know.
Probably about a half a mile.
And when you say a buffer, what is a buffer? Are you talking about trees? Are you talking about a fence?
No, that you would not be able to shoot within half a mile of public property. Because if that's how far the
sure.
Thing you're shooting goes. So a lot of the crop damage permits are in these very large tracts where if they fire an errant shot, it's not going to hit anybody in a public park because it doesn't go that far.
Also, they let their neighbors know when they're doing it, mostly, sort of as a courtesy, and you avoid that area.
Yeah. What we're talking about is these private properties that are right next to public properties, and on the state parks. Very often, the trails go near the edge of the parks.
And again, that's fair. I think there is a discrepancy that people feel like if it's on their own private property, they should be able to shoot. And so whether or not it's right up against a public or not, and I guess this is just something we have to continue to talk about. And this idea that just because they're 2%, I think is not a fair debate, because there are 2 or less or 7% of different types of people, but we do certainly support their interests. And so I think this is something we are going to have to figure out in the future, because I don't know the hunting schedule by heart, but I'd be curious about if this were implemented in the places that wanted it, are there any free Sundays, or is every Sunday taken up? And that is something
in Carroll County, it will be every Sunday. People could still go to Montgomery County after 10:30 on Sundays.
Thank you very much. That concludes Bill on House Bill 832. We're going to move on to House Bill 1511, Delegate Ruth, Natural Resources, Wildlife Damage Prevention and Reimbursement Fund Establishments. And as a reminder, bills that have come out of rules, we're doing sponsor only.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Sheila Ruth, and I'm here presenting House Bill 1511. I first want to say this is a bipartisan bill. It has bipartisan co-sponsors, and it's the cross-file of a bill that Senator Folden filed in the Senate. So as long as I've been on this committee, I've heard about the damage that deer are causing to agriculture, and it's extensive. And I've heard here and at various events I've been to, I've heard the anger and frustration of farmers that are experiencing severe amounts of damage when the deer eat their crops. I've seen it myself in person when I visited Lindsay Thompson. I think you all know Lindsay Thompson. I visited her farm on the Eastern Shore and saw the amount and extent of this damage. And it's causing a huge economic impact to farms as well. We heard in the State of the Agriculture briefing at the beginning of the session, we heard about the damage that it's causing. We heard that it accounts for roughly 15 to 20% of the loss in agricultural output. and results in tens of millions of dollars of damage for farmers across our state. We also heard in that briefing that some farmers have gone out of business because the damage was so extensive. So this is not just about the farmers, because if we're losing agriculture, if crops are being damaged that extensively, it's going to impact our food supply. And farmers contribute a lot to our economy. They're the largest commercial industry in Maryland, and if we're losing farms, we're losing agricultural land. So this is really an important issue, and it's an issue I've been participating as part of a work group since 2023, along with several other members of this committee, also participated in that work group, which was initially led by then Senator Sarah Elfreth. Of course, she is no longer with us because she's in Washington, D.C. But that work group also included the Secretary of Agriculture and the Secretary of Natural Resources and various other members of those departments. And we really worked to come up with solutions for the deer that will work. And there is no one good answer. There's no magic bullet here, excuse the pun. Wasn't really an intentional pun, but it worked out. There's no magic bullet. But several members of this committee have come forward with partial solutions that came out of that work group. Delegate Ziegler has been working on the tax credit for donating venison. Delegate Allen had in his bill the Deer Management Assistance Program, which was one of the recommendations that came out of that work group, because although farmers have deer management permits, they don't always know what the barriers are sometimes high for getting those and for hunting the deer. And so that would provide some assistance for them. And also Delegate Naraki has been working on deer management plans for the counties, which was another recommendation that came out of that work group. But in the end, there are still deer, and they're still causing damage, and we need to make sure that that doesn't affect the farmers. Well, it's going to affect them, but we need to try to minimize that and to minimize the impact on the economy. So this bill establishes a fund to reimburse Maryland farmers for up to $5,000, depending on damage assessments, for damage caused by deer, also geese and other wildlife as well. But just plugging the hole of compensating for damage, and $5,000 is really not a lot to compensate a farmer for damage, but just plugging that hole is not enough. But the great thing about this fund is it also allows grants for preventing the deer damage in the first place. So farmers can apply for grants for things like fencing or deer repellent or hiring sharpshooters, for any number of things that can help prevent it. And the bill does require, or it doesn't require, but it prioritizes farmers who have used recommended methods by DNR for preventing the damage before they apply for the reimbursement. So this is something that will help both protect agricultural land and protect the farmers for the damage that occurs regardless of everything that's being done. And this, just to mention, this is based on the Black Bear Damage Fund as well. Just really quickly wanted to address the fiscal note, which is obviously significant. But the bill doesn't, the fiscal note was $754,000 in the first year. This bill does not require that amount of money. That is just a pie in the sky, what it could take to do that. What this bill does is it sets up a stamp that people can purchase that will contribute to the fund. And it also authorizes, but does not require, the governor to put $50,000 in the fund. Again, it's not enough. That wouldn't be enough to compensate for all the damage, but it's a start. It's a start to show the farmers that we really want to help them, and it's a start to help ameliorate the damage that it's causing to our economy. And so with that, I am happy to answer questions and ask for a favorable report.
Great, thank you, Delegate Ruth. Any questions on the Okay, thank you. That concludes Bill hearing on House Bill 1511. We'll turn to House Bill 1534, Delegate Homes, Condominiums and Homeowners Associations, Elections, Financial Statements, and Enforcement.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair. I'm still back in the Maggie McIntosh days here, Mr. Chair. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am old. I'm here to present to you HB 1534. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a bill in reference to common ownership communities and the election process. A lot of us have been receiving phone calls and concerns about the election process within common ownership communities. And what we are attempting to do here with this particular bill, and I say we, there is a crossfire with Senator Cheryl Kagan in Vice Chair of EEE. You have also perhaps remember hearing similar discussions about this with the Montgomery County only bill. All three of these bills are basically identical in terms of its context. What we're trying to do here is to set some priorities for elections within these common ownership communities. We have heard comments and concerns where there are persons within the common ownership community, which is condos, co-ops, and HOAs, that are basically running over the election process and not allowing it to take place as it should take place. This bill outlines some specifics, and as you all know, in most times you have to be more specific with your specificity. This bill outlines the specifics that must take place in terms of how the election processes take place, so that candidates who are requesting or wanting to be a candidate can in fact be a viable candidate and at some point perhaps based upon the voting process become a member of the board of directors. And one of the things that this bill does say is that the governing body may, I want to emphasize that word may, the governing body may retain a third-party vendor to assist in the in performing the election process. And having been involved with this with a number of common ownership communities across the state, in assisting common ownership communities in a lot of jurisdictions around the area, I have assisted a couple of common ownership communities in hiring a third party, and it is not that expensive. It's pretty inexpensive, quite frankly, to hire a third party to take care of it. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that is the major part of this bill. I would urge a favorable report and would open up myself to any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Delegate Holmes. Any questions on the bill? Okay, that concludes bill hearing on House Bill 1534. We'll go to House Bill 1541, Delegate Holmes, Condominiums Mandatory Insurance Coverage.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. It is so good to be back with you again. What we have before you now is House Bill 1541. And as you all know, this bill is specific only to condominiums, one portion of the common ownership community portfolio. This is only referencing to condominiums. We all know that in the entire United States there is a lot of insurance companies that are averting risk by not insuring condominiums. We all know that in some condominiums the costs to obtain insurance is rising higher and higher. One of the reasons for that is because of the condominium deductible in these condominiums. We heard a bill earlier where we discussed raising the deductible from $10,000 to $25,000 in the state of Maryland to address that issue of insurance companies averting the risk of insuring condominiums. There's another portion of this that we have not yet addressed, which is what HB 1541 is looking at. We have not addressed the issue of where unit owners are not required to have insurance. And in the insurance policy world, that is called the HO6 insurance policy. This bill 1541 requires condominium owners to have insurance. And let me explain to you why this is necessary. If there's damage in a unit and the condominium unit owner does not have insurance, that condominium unit owner where the damage took place is now on the hook to pay out of pocket the master policy deductible. And if condominium unit owners are having troubles all across the state in terms of keeping up with rising costs of everything, what we don't want to do is put something on their backs to put something on their back where they have to come out of pocket for funds. This requires a condominium unit owner to have what is called HO6 insurance. At least, and the deductible for this is $25,000. This policy of HO6 for the $25,000 deductible is probably about $35 to $40 a year. In my opinion, this assists in helping these condominium unit owners stay viable in their communities. And all we're trying to do is to make sure that if someone lives in a condominium, that we can assist them as best as possible. And that's the primary focus of HB 1541, Mr. Chair. And I will take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on the bill? Okay, that concludes Bill hearing House Bill 1541. We will turn to House Bill 1556. Delegate Stein, Advanced Clean Cars 2 Program and Advanced Clean Trucks Regulation, Application and Enforcement.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and committee members, let me start by saying that I am a big fan of electric vehicles, or EVs. I bought my first one in 2017, and my family now has two. EVs are the future of automobiles, and they will be a big part of climate solutions. And Maryland car dealers recognize this. They have invested tens of millions of dollars to support sales of EVs, and they now have more than 80 models of EVs to sell. But the increase in the rate of sales of EVs in the state has slowed. Last year, the percentage of new car sales that were battery electric vehicles in the state was 10.1%, and that's an increase of only 1% from 2023, when sales were 9.1%. And the percentage of new car sales that were plug-in electric hybrids was 2.7%. And keep in mind, these numbers for 2024 were before the announcements that the new federal administration is going to, not to mix metaphors, pull the plug on the $7,500 federal EV tax credit and take other actions that will be discouraging to purchasing EVs. So what's called the Advanced Clean Cars 2 standard, that's what this bill deals with, as well as the Advanced Clean Truck standard. The Advanced Clean Cars standard 2 standard will require that 43% of all vehicles shipped by each manufacturer to Maryland dealers in model year 2027, which begins next fall, be zero-emission vehicles. In model year, that requirement, in model year 2028, that increases to 51%. Now, some credits are available to offset that number, that percentage requirement, but they will not make up the difference between actual sales and the Clean Car Standard. And manufacturers have said they will not buy credits, even if enough were available, and it's questionable as to whether there would even be enough available. So looking at the credits that are available, the best estimate is that under the standard, EVs will have to represent 30% of manufacturer sales in model year 2027, and 35% in the next model year, 2028. If a manufacturer does not meet these percentages, they could be assessed thousands of dollars for each car that misses that target. So as a result, there is significant concern that manufacturers, to avoid the risk of penalties, will meet Maryland's targets by reducing the number of gas-powered cars, or otherwise known as ICE cars, internal combustion engine cars, that they provide to dealers for sale in Maryland. That would translate to a large reduction in cars that dealers can offer, meaning far fewer choices for Maryland buyers and a huge loss in sales for Maryland dealers. The idea of manufacturers providing fewer ICE cars is not speculation. It's already started in New York, which is also a Advanced Clean Cars 2 state. Some New York car dealers were told that inventory shifts would start to be made in June of this year in anticipation of Clean Cars 2 starting this September in New York. So if this happens in Maryland, Maryland car dealers, who again are committed to selling EVs and are actively doing their best to sell EVs, invested a fair amount of their own money, they will be hurt. And it's important to point out, in the process, it will not yield any more EVs being sold. So what my bill does is limit the penalty threat on manufacturers for 2 years. Manufacturers have said that if the threat of penalties is eliminated, they will continue to provide both gas-powered vehicles and EVs to dealers. And during this interim, this 2-year interim, we can further build up our EV charger infrastructure through bills like Delegate Terrasas and other initiatives. And we know that that is the main impediment to growing EV sales, that is to having a broader EV charger infrastructure. With respect to trucks, we're faced with a similar situation with the Advanced Clean Trucks program, which applies to vehicles over 8,500 pounds gross vehicle weight rating, with the percentage of sales of zero-emission trucks increasing over time, again beginning in model year 2027, with potential fines to the manufacturers for missing targets. In the 11 states with Advanced Clean Trucks, or ACT programs, manufacturers have already begun restricting truck sales, limiting what dealers are able to sell. California, which is the only state that has had a full year under the ACT program, experienced a reduction in truck sales of 79% through August of last year. As an example, Mack Trucks has announced that the sale of diesel vehicles is, quote, restricted due to the low level of EV sales, the extremely limited number of available credits, and the lack of a credit pooling framework among the opt-in states. And also, it's worth noting that in Maryland, sort of, an analogy to the issue of EV charging infrastructure for regular cars, but it's more pronounced with respect to trucks, is that there's currently no public charging infrastructure for medium and heavy-duty trucks in Maryland. In cooperation with Connecticut, Delaware, and New Jersey, Maryland received an I-95 Clean Corridor Coalition grant to add charging at locations along I-95, but these won't be built until 2029 to 2030. I do want to make a couple points about credits. Opponents to the bill have said that if a manufacturer cannot meet the annual requirement in a particular model year, for example, specifically 2027 or 28, it can make up the deficit within 3 model years under Advanced Clean Cars 2. But almost all of the manufacturers will not be close to meeting the goal in model year 27 or 28. So assuming that they're going to over-attain goals in, say, the 3rd year under this scenario to make up for model year 27, 28 is just not realistic. With respect to the pooling of credits, which is another option available, almost all manufacturers will not, none of them, with one possible exception, would over-comply in a state and have extra credits to send to Maryland. Every Clean Cars 2 state, including California, is behind in meeting their sales requirements. So in closing, I want to emphasize that this bill does not rescind or pull Maryland out of the Advanced Clean Car 2 or the Advanced Clean Trucks program. It does not eliminate the sales targets because we're trying to stay on an upward trajectory with respect to adoption of electric vehicles. My bill simply provides assurances that no fines will occur in Maryland for model years 27 and 28 as the market for these products continues to develop. And with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Delegate Stein. I know it's a tough but realistic assignment that you've taken on here. I do have some questions. You mentioned that the dealer industry has invested a lot of money in the zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. So in some ways, have we already gotten some of the benefit from this regulatory structure because they've made these investments? Now they have continued incentive to push
I believe so, as well as encouraging the manufacturers to provide more models of EVs. I mean, when I bought my 2017 Nissan Leaf, or 2016 Nissan Leaf in 2017, there were probably just a handful of EV options. Now, again, in Maryland, dealers can offer more than 80 options. So between the investment as well as the significant expansion of cars that are offered, EVs that are offered by manufacturers, that is, one could say a good part because of advanced clean cars.
Great. And I myself drive a Ford Mustang Mach-E. I'm glad we were both smart enough not to buy that other formerly popular zero-emission vehicle. I do have another question. My recollection is we basically have two choices when it comes to sort of regulating tailpipe emissions as a state. We can follow the federal standard or the California standard based on the Clean Air Act. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And California files, I think, waivers with the federal government to sort of establish their standards?
Yes.
Okay. And so if they wanted to make a significant modification to their current waiver, recognizing some of these limits that we're facing in Maryland, which is happening in every state with this, they would need federal approval for that. Is that?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And so it would be very difficult in this current federal environment to expect any kind of reasonable accommodation from the federal government from California?
I think that's a fair statement.
Okay. Any additional questions on this bill? Delegate Ciliberti.
It's off the topic, if I may. I would be remiss if I did not share that with this august body. But one of us today was just elected Legislator of the Year, and that goes to Jay Jacobs. Give him a round of applause. Jay.
Is that a statewide honor or a specific organization that named you?
Big organization.
Fantastic. Well, well-deserved. Congratulations, Delegate Jacobs.
An enormous organization.
That's great. Shifting back, any other questions on this bill? Very nice. Okay, Delegate Stein, I think we're well off topic now, so thank you. That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1556. And I believe we can turn to House Bill 1266, Montgomery and Prince George's County Delegation, Zoning and Land Use Fairness in Zoning. Just in the nick of time, Delegate Alston.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This bill that I'm waiting for the amendments to arrive, this Fairness in Zoning bill is a result of a compromise within our delegation that will create a work group to study how we do land use and zoning in Prince George's County. We've had lots of issues over the years regarding how our county council and our planning board function as it relates to each other. And what this bill seeks to do is study those issues to see how we can utilize best practices to make sure we are doing the best thing for our county. In addition, I'm a little out of breath, I ran around here. In addition, it seeks to also study DPI, which is our permitting department, to see how we can make that more efficient. And I'm happy to answer any questions on this local bill.
We have a question from Delegate Healy.
Thank you. I want to thank Delegate for the bill. Our last meeting of the delegation, she was not actually able to be there when the delegation as a whole amended this bill in an amazing, I've never seen before, but we basically, the amendments are the bill, so we really have to look at them closely, but the delegation is all in for it at this point. Thank you.
Question from Delegate Foley about this Prince George's County bill.
Yes, Mr. Chair. It's a bi-county bill, right?
It only affects Prince George's
Yeah, it only
County.
affects Prince George's, but my question is, did Montgomery County sign off on the bill? I can't remember.
I'm sure they voted it out. That's the only way
We
we would
did?
get
Okay,
it.
thank you.
So bills in this committee that are local do not get hearings until we get letters from the delegations, which is why this was a little bit last minute because of the delay in that. So Delegate Austin, we thank you for rushing over to do this hearing so we could get it done before our Monday deadline. Any other questions? Okay, you have a question? Okay.
Can I get my other bill out before the deadline?
That concludes the bill hearing on House Bill 1266.
Thank you all very much.
Subcommittee announcements, Chair Stewart. Chair Stewart. Chair Holmes, Chair Stewart, somebody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are going to start housing and real property at 3:30.
Chair Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to anticipate that Chair Stein is going to want to go at 4:30, and therefore I'm going to take for motor vehicle and transportation 5 o'clock.
Okay, so environment will meet at 4:30, we think?
Unless you hear otherwise, I'm not going to steal Dana's thunder, but if you, yeah.
So keep an eye out on your email. A lot of subcommittee meetings today, and tomorrow we'll have a voting session at some point tomorrow, and we'll keep rolling along. All right, everybody? And congratulations again, Delegate Jacobs.
Yes,
All right, thanks, everybody.